So, hello everyone. I hope you all are doing fine. And today we are going to cover Ben Johnson, and also before that, what I would like to, say, or we should actually continue what we have left before. You remember we were solving that PYQ on Shakespeare, and we just left it for the night, but for some reason we could not do it at night. So today we are starting with the PYQ on Shakespeare, and then we'll quickly move to our Ben Jonson. So let's begin whatever the question we have left. So as you can see, we have the first question here on your screen. Match the list. So some are born great, others achieve greatness. So most of you know where it was taken from. Right, it was taken from the 12th night. Then what other thing is there? Love looks not with the eyes but with the mind, and therefore winged, painted, lined. So this kind of question you get, in your exam. So this was taken from Midsummer Night Dream. And then we have ill deeds is doubled with an evil word. What could be the answer? The second one, the comedy of error. And the last one, we are such stuff as dream are made. Very important line. And our little life is surrounded with sleep. So that is from the Tempest. So our answer you can see is here. Okay, the explanation is here. The quote, some are born great from 12th night, love looks not with the eye, a midsummer night's dream, ill deeds are doubled with an evil word from the comedy of error, and we are such a stuff as dream is the tempest. Question number second, as you can see over your screen, we are talking about the Globe Theatre when it was burned down. What play it was performing? So there was a play during the performance was what Richard third no, we have Henry the eighth, very famous, and that kind of question you always get in your exam. So let me tell you some explanation. As you know, Henry VIII is a collaborated with John Fletcher to produce this work, and of course, it is about King Henry, who has wives at that time. Remember, and it was, and there is a title all is also, and ultimately published as Henry the Eighth. So what you remember about the Henry VIII, that it was uh, collaborated with John Fletcher. Very important. And what during a performance Henry VIII that play at the Global Theatre in 1613. What happened? A cannon was shot used for special kind of effects ignited the thatched roof of the theater, and what happened, it caused a fire. Question number 3, the we have the code, right? The great tragedy. So the first one is obviously Hamlet. The great tragedy, four great tragedies, always you get question based on that. So when you know that Hamlet was published first, then what was it? uh, and Othello. So Hamlet, you can just find the first one. A should be 1400. Great tragedy. Then we have Macbeth, and which was published in 16. So remember, Othello, Hamlet, Othello, King Lear, and Macbeth. That was the Great Four tragedy, and Macbeth was performed on already, yeah, this one itself. And Othello, as you see, the second number, we have this, and Julius Caesar, this. So easy to answer if you know the order of these. Great tragedy: Hamlet, remember, then Othello, King Lear, Macbeth. Right. So here is the same thing, the order of the play, and we already talked about Othello, and who was black, remember. And who among the following, after watching the performance of William Shakespeare's play A Midsummer's Night's Dream, observed that it is the most insipid and what ridiculous play that I have ever kind of saw in my life? That was the quote. Who said it? So it was actually mentioned in a diary of, so who was the at that time a diarist, Samuel Pepys and John Evelyn. So our answer is Pepys. So what he said about the Midsummer's Night Dream is that it is the most ridiculous play that I ever saw in my life. Right. And question number fifth, who among the following has used lines from Shakespearean play Othello to critique racism in one of his poems? We already discussed about who got the poem written. It was Walcott. Remember that? And what was the name of the poem? Very important that you should remember. Goats and Monkey. Then arrange the following plays in their chronological order. So the chronological order is very important. As you know, Country Wife is a Jacobean play, right? And our Cymbeline and would the rivals. The rivals is, this is from Kid. Remember that? And this is Shakespeare. So that you should know that Kid came before this. So obviously 89, I guess, this one, tragedy. So C should be first, then our Shakespeare, which is B, and then the rest, the Country Wife, as you know, Jacobean, and we have the Rivals, which is like in the uh, Victorian time. So that will be T. So easy to answer if you know these, right? And here are who has written it. As you know, the Country Wife is William Wycherley. The Rival by very famous Richard Brinsley Sheridan, 18th century. That you have to remember. Okay, who is the author of the play The Dark Lady of the Sonnet? We already discussed in the sonnet itself. It was George Bernard Shaw. And we talked about Tufan, right? It was based on The Tempest by Veeraswamy. Very important that you should remember. So these kind of questions these days you're getting on Shakespeare. Okay, match the list again about the quote that we know. So first one you should know about the Hamlet. So time out of joint, remember we talked about it at the end of the play. Hamlet, time out of joint, by said by Hamlet. Very important. And as we know, there is no art to find mind's construction in the face. Very famous line that you know it was said in Macbeth. Then my kingdom for a horse. So very important when he, you know, this is said in Richard. Very, we have already mentioned this line in our slide. So that is by Richard. And the better part of Wheeler is discretion. And where it was said in 12th night. So through that you can remember. And that line, the first line that we told you about, this one, the art of mind construction in the face in Macbeth, it was King Duncan. Then again, another question is the correct statement you have to find relation to Shakespeare's work. So first folio, as we know, 1623, right? The date. How many plays? 36 plays. Appeared in the 17th century. So that should be the 17th century. Uh, Quartos appeared in the 16th century and the quarto appeared in the, so first folio obviously 17th century, right? So this is our incorrect statement. Then the quarto appeared during his lifetime, that is true. What was his lifetime? You remember 1590 to 1613. That time all the quarto appeared and the first folio edition appeared in 1623 when he was not anymore. So that is our correct answer. The first the folio edition appeared during his lifetime and the quarto appeared posthumously. That is incorrect, and the quarto refers to work between 1599. This is kind of true, but this folio includes work written between. That is wrong because folio include all 30 uh, published in 1623 and 36 plays. Okay, now next question, as you see, well, where is, okay, this is the question in chronology order. So as you know, the Tempest was in what time? 16, somewhere around 1613 something, or maybe before that also. Wolfbone, on the other hand, was in 1606, somewhere around that. So obviously, our this Ben Jonson, this will be first, and then the Tempest, and All for Love, and at the end we have the School for a Scandal. 1605 it was performed and printed on 1606, and Tempest, on the other hand, composed around this time, 1610, very important, to 11. Love, it is from Dryden, so obviously very late, 1677, and the big gap is here, 100 years gap, you should know. It was in Richard. It premiered on 1777. So that we have to remember. So in that way you can easily remember. So again, we already talked about what kind of question they ask, especially about the sonnet and the poem and the lines about Shakespeare, to analyze it for you. So here some of the lines are given to you in the passage, and they'll ask the question like in the passage, the church officer is asked to whip his bear rather than the prostitute, because men like him make them prostitutes. So when you read it carefully, you'll be able to answer the question. So for that, you can just go to your PYQ session. There is quizzes there in your app. You can just click and solve all these question. Another question that it was again about the extract from the Tempest. They have put some lines here and they have asked question. This insubstantial patient refers to what? A non-real performance. So these kind of question you get. Another question from the same, they have asked this. Again, the extract they're asking from King Lear. So this is the trend going on for the like past 5 years. They give you the text and then you have to answer. Is more no more than this means what? Man is not as well endowed as some other animals. Right. Another question is there also. Again, very important is here this question. Lear Tolstoy, who has written George Orwell? We already discussed in our session. So if you haven't watched, you should go and watch and then come and solve this with me. Or you can just go to your Google Classroom and you'll find this quiz and also the PDF. So if you haven't subscribed, the course, you should, because the good thing about that, it's lifetime. So you just buy once and it'll be there with you unless you clear the net. So, and the next batch, it will be again a new fresh batch that you can also join. But for now, we have already covered a lot of chapter, a lot of ground in British literature, and we have around solved like 15 questions from all these sessions, right? So your 15 questions here, or questions are already done, and the rest anyway we are moving there, and we are moving forward with a good pace, right? So this Lear Tolstoy and the Fool is an essay, remember, by Orwell, and it was inspired by critical essay on Shakespeare by Leo Tolstoy. So it was a kind of reply, right? And what was poor Yorick in Hamlet? So Yorick, as you know, he was a jester, and as you know, Hamlet was holding his skull. Very important that you should know. Right. Arrange the following characters in their chronological order. So, if you know all these characters, you'll be easy to. So, Sir Epicure Mammon, where this character was appeared, do you know that? And as you know, Shylock from our Merchant of Venice. Shakespeare. And Epicure Mammon is from very close kind of call, because it was from Ben Jonson. As you know, Ben Jonson's career started around 1594, and this play was written Alchemist later around 1606, somewhere there. And our early, as you know, Merchant of Venice is mature comedy, and it came before 16. So obviously B should be first, then D should be second, and we have Mirabelle and Jimmy Potter. So Jimmy Potter, we come into our drama here, and Mirabelle, our character, is here, away of the world, right? So we have BDAC. So that is our answer. Easy to form if you know the Mirabelle character, The Way of the World, 1700 by Congreve. Jimmy Potter, as you told you, 20th century, Look Back in Anger. So these kinds of question you get, and very easy to answer if you know it, know the order, know the work and their order, chronology order of the work, it'll be easy to answer. And the gap is a lot, so even your slight guess will help you to answer. So question number 16 says, what might the speaker mean when he addresses time in Shakespearean sonnet and declares? So as we know, in the sonnet we have like about the time, right? The like time passes, your beauty will fade, but your memory will remain the same. All these things are there, right? So he said, like time, I will be true despite thy scythe and thee. So it what? Time preserves human life, or with time comes change, or time creates opportunity, or time removes human life. So the mostly it is about 123 sonnet, right? Where speaker addresses to time as what? I will be true despite thy scythe. It means that the speaker intend to remain faithful and true despite the passage of time, inevitability of aging and death. So the speaker is acknowledging that time has destructive power, right? So our answer would be human life. Question number 17, on the other hand, is talking about Hamlet, right? Something is rotten in the state of Denmark, and it was Hamlet, said by Marcellus. Very in the opening scene itself, Marcellus said this. So, as you can see, Act 1, Scene 4 by Marcellus. Then, which Shakespearean comedy is structured as a play within a play? So, can you name in the chat box that you know play within a play in Shakespearean plays? Can you name those play that you remember which has a play within a play? So, as we know, we have Hamlet, play within a play, and then we have A Midsummer's Night Dream. And can you name one more? Okay, so these two are the main which has the play within a play. And the other, if you're talking about by other playwright, so we have a Spanish tragedy which actually started this kind of trend, play within a play. So we have three. Can you name where the disguise characters are there in the Shakespearean play? Do you know? So as we know, we have uh, disguise in, of course, 12th night, first one. And then we have, where, can you guess one disguise here? And if you name it, you just write in the chat box. That's a job for you, do it. Anyway, so here we were talking about the play within a play. So the most lamentable comedy and most cruel death of Pyramus and Theseus by the alchemist. So that was the name of the play in A Midsummer's Night's Dream. Okay, again we are talking about the quote here, and I think you might have heard about the first one, like here, gone what come may, time and the hours run through the roughest day. Can you who said this thing? It was in Macbeth. Right. And then when sorrow comes, they come not single spy but in battalion. It was by Hamlet, right? I am a more I am a man more sinned against than sinning. Very important line that it was said in King Lear, said by King himself. But I will wear my heart upon my sleeves for dogs to peck at. I am not what I am. It is in Othello. So let me see what the answer here. Battery. Yes, we are back again. So to just confirm that con what come may, time and the hour runs through the roughest day in Macbeth. And when sorrow comes from Shakespeare. Very important line, and it was said by King Claudius. I am a man more sin against than sinning. That is King Lear, is spoken by our king. But I will wear my heart upon my sleeve is what by Othello. Okay, question number 20. As you can see over your screen, what needs my Shakespeare for his honored bones? The labor of an age is piled stone. So these are lines written by John Milton because it was on Shakespeare. That was the sonnet. So the full line is there because sometime you get question on that. Like here you got in very recent exam. What needs my Shakespeare for his honor bone? The labor of an age in piled stone, or that his hallowed relic should be hid under a starry pointing pyramid. Dear son of memory, great heir of fame, what needst thou? Such weak witness of thy name, thou in our wonder and astonishment hast built thyself a live long monument. So one question was there also, long, way back in your exam. For whilst to the shame of slow endeavoring art, thy eerie numbers flow, and that each heart hath from the leaves of thy unveiled book those Delphic lines with deep impression took, then thou our fancy of itself breathing dost make us marble with too much conceiving. And so specular in such pomp dost lie that king for such a tomb would wish to die. Was the whole. And the book Political Shakespeare, very important book that you get like 100% in your exam, 100% about this work. And also uh, this one very important, and as you know it was by Gaius Deleuze and Felix Guattari, very important one. No, not this one, actually it was this name, Jonathan Dollimore. Very important. Most of the time you get question on that. I mean, not most of, but like continuously they are asking for the past 3 years this question. So in that perspective, this particular work is very important for you. And if you read more about what is inside, that'll be really, you'll be in the safe zone that you'll get the question. So as you know, it was written in Jonathan Delimore and Alan Sinfield. The book is collection of essays that applies principle of cultural materialism to the study of Shakespeare text and cultural context in which they were produced. Then we have again another question: which of the following plays of William Shakespeare was translated into. See, these kind we have already discussed in our previous session that it was what Macbeth. Okay, He was also known as the father of Bengali theatre. Girish Chandra. Then, which of the following works are written by John Dennis? Can you tell me quickly here? John Dennis, and why he is mentioned here? Because of our Shakespeare. So, he has written about an essay on the genius and writings of Shakespeare, and he also wrote The Ground of Criticism in Poetry, and he wrote The Advancement and Reformation of Modern Poetry. Then, John Dennis, as you know, English critic, and all his works are here. Anyway, question number 34. Like I was talking about this one in the beginning, political Shakespeare, right? With Alan Sinfield. So he was co-authored and key contributor of the political. See, now two questions you got from here. So that's why this question is very important. And they have asked the date this time. Right, so it was 85. Very important how close question they are asking. So like 100% they're gonna ask about it, maybe a little bit deeper. So that is right. And if they'll ask about deeper, you just know that it is about Shakespearean materialism, right? So a little bit in, especially what Renaissance literary culture, art, censorship, and cultural theory. Okay, which of the following plays may be considered as parody of Shakespeare's Macbeth? The parody of Macbeth is from where? Alfred Jarry's Ubu Roy. Very important. These questions are. I'm telling you, this is also a kind of 100%. If not in set one, then you might get in next shift. So you have to remember this. Alfred Jerry Ubo Roy. Okay. This Ubo Roy not only parodied what Macbeth but also Hamlet and King Lear. Okay. Okay then. Question number 26. Which two plays of Anton Chekhov made creative use of Shakespeare's Hamlet? So, as we know, the one, obviously, the Seagull, and the second one is your Three Sisters. Then match the list. We are talking about the list here. Who has written what? So, characters of Shakespeare's play. So it was by Lamb, right? Is it? A3. It was by William Hazlitt. So remember this, very important. Charles Lamb, he wrote about the, here as you can see, Imaginary Conversation is by Savage Landor. This one is very important. Anyway, we'll move to their section and know more about it. So these are all by, somewhere around Shakespeare. Okay. A specimen of English dramatic poets who lived about the time of Shakespeare is by Charles Lamb. This one. And we are left with what? Thomas Love Peacock. This one. Gyril Grange. Next question. Who among the following has written Lear? Just Lear the play. As we know, it is by Edward Bond. Narrow Road to the Depth Fort. This is Edward's most satirical play. The Sea is about the village, but it also talks about Shakespeare's Tempest. The Sea. Bingo, very important. It is the life of William Shakespeare. So mostly Edward Bond has written about, something, somewhere it based on William Shakespeare. So did not Shakespeare hate and despise Edmund? Where do you get this one? It is in Aspects of Poetry and by John Campbell Sapp. Okay, all the criticism we talked already in our session, all the criticism and the support of Othello. Who composed the poem The Phoenix and the Easy? William Shakespeare. Now match the list. Macbeth, M. Makbul, right? And then Isaac is from where it is Romeo and Juliet. And then we have Kai Poche, Three Mistakes of Life, Slumdog Millionaire, Q&A, Swaroop. So you have to know. And why this question is there? Because of the Macbeth, Makbul. Okay, so that's all here, guys. We have completed how many questions? Around 20, 36 questions. So we have 36 questions done. It's all in the past 5 to 6 years. And this year question, we didn't get a question paper yet, but we'll definitely update in your quiz that you can go and check out in your Google Classroom. Anyway, so guys, now we are done and we have already like 36 minutes, 36 minutes already gone, and we have like 24 minutes to finish Ben Jonson, and that is actually post Shakespearean class that we are talking about. Okay, so first thing about Ben Jonson that you should know is the life. 1573 1637, right? Very important date that you get. So his life span is more, and he has career also the longer. And we have actually a lot of things to remember in Ben Jonson that in exam appear. And why do they ask more, mostly about Ben Jonson? Because he kind of changed the era. He was like a Dickens in his time, right? So he uses mostly about the city life, London life, and also the comedy of manners, humor, all these things he actually started from here, right? So let me tell you about the life. What you have to know, that he was born in Westminster, educated as well there itself in a Westminster school. His father died before his birth. He was adopted by his father, and who was actually bricklayer. And uh, of course, he became soldier after some time in Low Country, engaged himself both as actor and playwright in Lord Admiral's company. Lord Admiral's, where Marlowe was associated, right? And 1998, he actually killed. So he was a kind of murderer in a deal, and it was in his defense, obviously. And at that time, what became famous? That mask. So he took the opportunity and wrote so many. He also kind of club, like we have Kit Kat Club, right? All these things. We have a Scribblers Club. So that's kind of club that he started is Mermaid Tavern. Very famous. And here Ben Jonson, Francis Beaumont attended along with other scholars intellectually. There is no evidence that Shakespeare or Raleigh ever attended these meetings. Right, and he was buried in Westminster Abbey. Very important. And you're getting these days question on this timber or discovery. Like 3 4 times they have asked continuously about this work. It's a kind of prose work. Okay? It is classified as other work. So this work is very important, right? And it is actually about the common paper. Like I'll tell you more about when we discuss. Like here you see what he said about in his discovery, that language most shows a man. Speak that I may see thee. Then it springs out the most retired and inmost parts of us, and is the image of the parent of it, the mind. No glass renders a man's form or likeness so true as his speech. Now it is linked to a man, and as we consider feature and composition in man. So words in language, in the greatness, aptness, sound structure, and harmony. So basically, he's talking about the words and language of a man, right? That's what we can think about. And as you know, he began his career with, actually, he got famous with all these works, but he started his career, as you know, with A Tale of a Tub. A Tale of a Tub. Very important work. The same who has written Jonathan Swift. So, two people have written about it. So, that you should know. So, let me tell you about the list of works first. So, when we talk about the works of any, we should know first work. Remember our formula, very important, because you are going to get question 100% in, works of our Ben Jonson. So first work and the last work, that you have to remember. As you know, our first work is A Tale of a Tub, and the last one we have is the Mortimer, His Fall. They don't usually ask about this, but you should know that these two works, that there is first and last. Then half of your problem is done. So we have code to remember three sets. A Tale of a Tub, The Isle of a Dogs, the case is altered. So we have the code for first three. A Tale of Dogs case. Very important that you can just cover all these three. Not important that you should actually know the plot and all, but you have to know the order. They don't ask question from these order, but for your reference, that there are some works before every man in his humor, and they are not that famous. That you should keep in your mind always when you prepare an order. Next we have Every Man in His Humor, then the next is Out of His Humor, and then Cynthia's Reveals and the Poet Star. We have a code. In Out Humor reveals the Poet Star. Very important. So in out we have in out, then we have what? Humor reveals means is what? The Cynthia Revels and the Poet Star, obviously. So we have four works code here that you should know, all these four, because they ask about the Poet Star, they ask about the Cynthia Revels, and they asked about Every Man Out of His Humor and Every Man in His Humor. So in came first, remember, in, then out, then what? Revel, and then what? Poet Star. So this order you should know. Then we have another code that you should know. These they don't ask these two, so you should know there are some work in between Volpone and Poetstar, but you don't have to remember. But he has written these two. So Volpone, very important. That three, late comedy which is famous is VOELT network. So when you use your phone, you see the 4G, right? With written like volt, right? So that is your code for to remember the later comedy. V represent Volpone, right? V represent, and then what E represent your epicene, and then we have volt. L represent what? Lt. Lt represent your alchemist. So these three you should know. Okay, these three works. One, and we have alchemist. Then the next you should know, we have other works. So usually what, you have the cats right in your house, they don't bark, right? They what, they, what kind of sound they make? Mew. So we have what, cat code, cats don't bark but mew on devil. So Kathleen his cousin, then Bartholomew fair, and the devil as. So through this code you can remember. Very important that you should know. Why I'm saying, because it's 100% you're going to get question on the chronology. 100% is there. So that's why we have a different code here to keep it in your mind, to kind of, you should sketch in your mind. So as we know, the last work, and we also have a code for second last word, right? The sad suffered, that you should remember, and your list is done. Then the next work, the set of work he has written, the mask. Total he has written the same amount what Shakespeare's first folio have. So 36 masks. And out of 36, you don't have to remember all of her name, but you have to remember what? Black Beauty, Queen, and Prince. So this code you have to remember: Black Beauty, Queen, and Prince. Right. And as you know, it was Johnson who started these kind of masks. I mean, he kind of capitalized the opportunity that was actually created by James at that time, right? In his court. So this you have to remember: Black Beauty, Queen, Prince. So Black Beauty, Queen, and Prince. That is your code to remember the mask in order. Okay. See other work. So these days in your exam, you're getting questions from that usually. Obviously, there is chronology order of one work, but if they ask something extra, so what they're asking from here only, they have asked about the Penhurst, they have asked about this on my first sonnet, they have asked about Horace Art of Discovery, they have asked about Underwood, and they have definitely asked three times about the timber of discovery made upon and a matter as they have flowed out of his daily readings, right? And to Celia, again very important for this line: drink to me only with thine eyes. This is the poem to Celia, very important. So all these things you have to remember at any cost. Either you can remember with the, because you don't need order here, chronology order. What you need, that he has written what, Penhurst on my this my son, this one, and which is elegy. And then Horace Arts Poetry. Why it is important? Because he translated Ars Poetica, he translated into English. So he is important. The timber, which is like consistently, you have got three questions from the past. So that you have to like 100% remember. Now let's talk about his important work. So as I told you, his career taken a new height only because of these works. Every man in his humor, as you can see over your screen. Remember the date 1598. And as you know, we have the code, right? Then we have out, in and out humor. Then what we have is in and out Cynthia revels, right? That is our code here. So first you have to remember that it was performed in Lord Chamber 1598. Play introduces what are vigorous and direct. What you have to know about this thing, the time of deformities, because at that time there was not good comedy coming, and especially about the London life, city kind of dialect and all these things. And remember, this is all written in blank verse. Don't think that it is kind of simple prose. Only prose play is Apicene, which is completely written in prose style. So Apicene is actually written in prose. Others are following the same formula like Shakespeare's blank tragedy, right? And why it is famous also, because Shakespeare believed to be, it is not 100% sure that Shakespeare actually played took a part, but it is suggested. So that you have to know. So very important about every man in his humor, that you should know the plot. They don't ask question. As far as I have analyzed all the question paper, they didn't ask about the character on this every man in his humor, but you should know the plot. It's a very good one, and you should be ready to tackle any kind of question. First thing you should know, there is old novel. He is actually worries like his son time on poetry. Then novel what intercepts a letter and reads disparaging remark about himself. Novel suspicious order brainworm. This character in the past, like 10 years ago, they were asking question on this brainworm to deliver the letter secretly. So brainworm reveals to Edward that his father read the letter. Edward plans a prank with his cousin Stephen and meets Wellbred. And uh, Kitely what fears his wife will be tempted by Wellbred's friends. Brainworm that you should always remember disguises as a soldier. So there is a disguise in this play itself, and that exactly. And what you have to remember, the play ends with plagiarized poetry. That's what you have to remember. And when we talk about out of his humor, you don't have to know any kind of plot and all, but there is a plot here if you read it anyway, that you can read in your notes. So first, what you have to remember, the date, and that you should remember it's a sequel and longest play ever written in Elizabethan, aim to be equivalent to Aristophanes' Greek comedy. So these things you have to remember. And why it's important, because it contains allusion to John Marston's Historymatrix. So that's why this particular play is very important in exams perspective. They didn't ask much of the questions based on that itself before, so you can just think like your every man out of his humor is done if you remember that it contains the allusion to John Marston's Historymatrix in Act 3. The very important work is your poetster. They, in the beginning, they were just asking about the chronology order. They were never, they didn't ask what is inside. But quite like 7 8 years ago, they were quite obsessed with this work. And why they were obsessed? Because of the war of theaters. At that time there was war of theater, remember? All they were fighting, like Decker, Marston, Ben Jonson, all these people, they were fighting against each other in, like intellectually fighting. They sometime they'll just portray some character in their play. That kind of stuff was happening at that time. So anyway, his arrival, John Marston and Thomas Dekker, is so-called poet. So it is a reply from poet mania. Mekia. So very important that you should know. The principal character of this play is what Ovid. For that you should remember. And very important thing is the poetster himself represent Johnson. And very important character that they used to ask question on, Crispinius. And why? Because they represent what Marston and Demetrius is Decker. Yeah, so in that perspective, this particular question is, sorry, particular play is very important. Anyway, so that is about Poster. Very important that they are asking again. Another important work that they ask about the Eastward Ho only because of this thing. It's a allude to Westward Ho by Thomas Dekker and John Webster. So these things are there. Anyway, we'll discuss more about War of Theaters, right? And in our Jacobean session, which will be tomorrow, and there will be some adjustment in time that anyway I'll post tonight itself, the link to join and the time and all. But anyway, now we have other things, right? Our volt, right? Volt, remember our code. So first is Volpone. And why? Drawing on element of city comedy and beast fable. Why it's important? Because it's beast and all the characters are actually important, these days the questions, question paper standard is not that high. That is normal question they're asking. But like 7 years ago, like 5 years ago, they were asking a lot of deep questions. But these days is they are asking from upstairs, I mean kind of front end, not inside. So but anyway, you have to remember all the character because we are covering past and question papers, right? So for in that case you have to actually know all of these character. So as we know, it's a beast fable. Beast means what? Mostly alluded to some kind of animals to a character. So like here Volpone is alluded and represented as sly fox, a greedy and rich, childless Venatican magnifico. Mosca represent fly, Voltaire vulture, Carpaccio very important the raven, and Bonario as a sun, and Corvino is crow, Celia Carvino's wife, Lady Woodby the parrot, and Peregrine pilgrims. That all you have to remember all the characters. And the plot that I'll tell you here is there is this Volpone, right? Who's our fox, pretends to be dying, wealthy old man. So they ask the opening, kind of setting and the plot of a particular play in your exam. So you should know he's a dying wealthy old man. So the question will be like, can you identify a play who has a character representing fox, or he's a dying wealthy old man, or they might ask in ABCD a statement about Volpone, or right, or they might ask what is true of all these things and the wrong one. So these things you have to remember. So as we told you, he's a dying wealthy old man. He tricks three greedy men, Corvino, Voltaire, and Corbaccio. Mosca, as you know, as a fly, helps to manipulate these gold diggers, and Carpaccio disinherit his son Bonario for Volpone's fortune. Then Volpone what seeks to seduce Corvino's wife Celia through trickery, and Corvino offers Celia to Volpone and promised inheritance. And Volpone what tries to rape Celia, but Bonario interrupts. And Celia and Bonario are falsely accused of adultery. And Mosca and Voltaire manipulate the court to protect Volpone. And the would-be are tricked by Volpone and Mosca. Right, and then what you have to remember, that at the end Volpone reveals the truth to the court, confessing everything. Everyone is punished for their greed and deceit. So that is the whole plot of our Volpone. Then we have another in our code. Our code again, one is done. Next is our epicene. Epicene, why it is important? Because it was completely written in prose. And the play is about Dauphin who creates a scheme to get his inheritance from his uncle Morse. And the plan involves setting Morose up to marry Epicene, who's actually a boy disguised as a woman. And it was initially performed by who? Blackfriar Children. So who was the member? R. Johnson. Right. That is epicene, the whole thing that you're going to get question only from these things, not in the plot, but you should know important characters that might appear in your exam is your true wit. That's all you have to remember here in the characters. And let me tell you the plot. Very good plot and very funny plot, in fact. As you can see, Morose, a wealthy man again here also, hates noise and disturbance. So what he does, he plans to disinherit Dauphin by marrying soon. And Dauphin schemes with Barber, what cut beard, to stop Morose. And what happened is Morose just Epicene, that silence moment, who's actually a man, right? Before marrying her. And Dauphin arranges the match to sabotage the that guy Morose's plan. And that exactly what happened. And at the end, Moro seeks a divorce but can't find legal ground. Dauphin reveals that Epicene is a disguised boy and the marriage is annihilated and Morose loses his inheritance. So that's about Epicene. Next we have Involved. Remember, always remember this, know the order. So LT is our alchemist. Right. So here you see, remember the date, very important. It was after who? After Tempest, we have the Alchemist. Then Henry the Eighth. Remember? 13, right? So, November 1610, London is plagued. Very important that you should know all the plot because they are. What happened? Why it's not working? Ah, that thing you should remember because in exam you are going to get question especially from the first three line. Remember, it is London city who is plagued, not Paris, not Cambridge and all. It was London who is plagued. And the lovewit leaves his house and he gives the house caretakers and servants like Jeremy. He himself becomes a face. So face is a Jeremy. Face teams up with Subtle. Remember, he teams up with Subtle, that you have to remember. A con man and all common, a common prostitute. And they turn Lovett's house in a scamming headquarters. Subtle pretends to be a master of alchemy, astrology, and magic. And Dapper, a clerk, seeks a spirit to aid his gambling. So we have a group of like con people right here. And the first one comes Sir Epicure Meeman. Believes Subtle can create a philosopher's stone. Sir Epicure. Remember the question there was about uh, in Alchemist, this character we solve. So that kind of thing comes. I'll tell you anyway more. So as he believes that Subtle can create what philosopher's stone, and he started dreaming about the wealth, power, and numerous, wealth and Puritan elders. Again, another one, tribulation, wholesome, and also pay for the stone. So they all kind of got tricked. They want the stone to gain wealth, right? And another characters, Pertinax surely, Sir Epicure's friend, doubt the whole scheme, and the play is a satire of greed and folly. Same like Volpone. So each customer is punished according to their vice and hypocrisy. Subtle and Face quarrel over Dame Pliant, a wealthy widow, and surely suspect their schemes, but is outwitted by Subtle and Face. Subtle and Face send all their customer packing, avoiding exposure. Love it, then what? At the end, he comes and subtle and subtle and doll, they both kind of flee and Face now Jeremy again conspire with Lovett to cover everything up. Lovett marries that Dame Pliant, and what happens? Keeps the swindle goods. So all these things happened, right? And other important facts that I would like to tell you about Ben Jonson that keeps appearing in your exam about the immortal memory and friendship of the noble pair Sir Lucius Carey of Morrison. So that is a poem that is written. It is not characterized as ode in the Horatian manner, and the same is like the ode the death of Duke of Wellington is also not included as Horatian. So that was a question, but this thing they have asked, that's why I have mentioned here. And the title of the poet laureate. So the first thing, the first poet laureate, not officially but kind of officially, because Ben Jonson got the pension from James. So basically he was the court poet, and usually court poet or nation poet are called what? Are poet laureate. So Ben Jonson was the first, but they that tradition started there, right? A Tale of a Tub, as you know, is by Jonathan Swift, first major work, and the same first major work is by Ben Jonson with the same name. So that will help you to remember the first work of Johnson, right? So in that way you can easily remember. Now it's time to talk about the questions that appeared in your exam. So first question obviously match the following. One question definitely will be there. And why Ben Jonson is mentioned here? Because of the timber. I told you they're asking question based on that three times consecutively now, so that you have to remember. Horace, everybody knows that he wrote Ars Poetica, and also why it is mentioned here, because Ars Poetica also translated by our Johnson, right? So and that's why they have put it here. Then we have John Dryden here. Dryden wrote Defense of a dramatic poesy, and our Samuel Daniel that we defense of rhyme already discussed, and its reply was from where, uh, that we have already discussed. Now, anyway, these things that you get always question. As you know, timber is about what? A common language about, no? We talked about the language, word, right? Common people's language, all these things in discoveries. Okay, so that is our answer here, and I have already about the observation on literature and language. I already told you, so that is all there. Question number two: who of the following called the poet star the rhyming friends? So, as you know, that was a dropped question, and poet star actually it was Johnson himself represented as poet star, right? Okay, arrange the following plays in their chronological order. So, just wait a minute. Where did it go? So I was talking about Pindar and Prodder. So usually what Poetstar was what? Our Ovid. Remember we talked about Ovid. So here it is not written anywhere. So that's why this question got, I think, dropped. Anyway, arrange the following please in their chronological. Again, about the chronology, as you know. Uh, so if you know the Tempest date, we have a set of things, right? 16, 13, our Henry, we had a code last work. And before that, what we have? Tempest. Remember the code. And before that, what we have? Winter. From the last we are going, not from the beginning, but from the last we are moving. So Tempest was around 65 or somewhere here. And Volpone, as we know, we have Volt the code, right? Volt the code. So Vol, obviously the great one, again somewhere around 16, not 5 this way. So very close question this is, right? I'll tell you why. So Tempest is somewhere around 1610. Okay, that you have to remember. 1613 is Henry, 1610 is Tempest, and that Winter is somewhere around 16, not somewhere around that time, but before Tempest, of course. So if you remember this thing, then you will be able to answer. So Volpone, our first one, then 1 year later we have Apacine, then 1 year later we have another work, Alchemist. So 1 year gap. So through that you can remember. So when you have these two, when you get these two right, it'll be easy to answer the rest. Love for love, all for love, Dryden. Obviously we have the code, all C V, our first one. Then we have the Tempest, which is A, like temp. And then we have all for love, all for love. And then we have at the end is Candle. One knows about it, right? Our Richard Brinsley, very famous character it has, that we'll talk about anyway. Question number 4. Which of the following are true of the dramatic legacy of Ben Jonson? So it is talking about the legacy of Ben Jonson, which basically is saying about his life and work, right? So Johnson physiological interpretation of character and personality did not have any precedent. So it cannot be, or could be. Let's find out. What we know first is this thing. Chapman's All Fools, Middleton, A Trick Told Catch belong to the genre of comedy and humor that Johnson is said to be pioneered. John Marston and Thomas Dekker collaborated with Johnson. That is also true. So these two are seems to be true, and that is also true. Great. Okay, so and question number 5 is in your screen. It is talking about name the playwright who wrote the play Apacine. So who wrote it? Ben Jonson. The Silence Woman. So these kind of easy questions you are getting these days. Anyway, which of the following have been correctly matched with their work? Ben Jonson, sahi hai. Okay, the Congreve Country Wife, definitely no, not right, because it is Why Shirley, right? And so where is C? In all the option we have C, so we are left with this one. So in that way you can answer. Afraban is actually correct, the Dutch lover. And Richard Sheridan, a schooled for scandal, absolutely correct. We have already discussed. Okay, which of the following two poems are linked with each other? Very important question, that they are linked in some terms of form. So as we know, is what? Dramatic monologue, this one, right? Dramatic monologue. So did dramatic monologue, Ben Jonson write anywhere? No, right? Another dramatic monologue you can say is here. No, not here. And upon Appleton to my Lord Fairfax. This is also, remember, to pen are actually linked with each other in terms of the form. Both are example of country house poem which were popular in that time. This one also because if you would say linked together, dramatic monologue also, but here is the answer is this particular thing. Okay, the last question of the session is here. Which two of the following plays were written by Ben Jonson? Devil is an ass, we already talked about. Remember the code. Cats don't bark but meow at devil. Order of the play, and that's the cover also hold the plot. So if you remember this, you'll be able to answer that it is written by this guy. And the another one is the this one, the staple of news. Okay guys, this is done here. Remember the devils at devil's news, that was our code. So guys, we have already covered our what did or talk session is the 36 questions from Shakespeare, and we talked about Ben Jonson and all of the thing which is like most, they are not going to ask, outside from what we have discussed so far. So Ben Jonson, we have discussed everything, almost all, every single play also we discussed. We had so many codes, right? And what we have discussed, the questions. So what were the codes? Can you remember from the beginning? The first we have the tales of dogs. Hana, we have this tale of dogs, the tale of a tub, and we have the Isle of the Dogs. Remember, the tale of dogs reveals Cynthia's secret. That code we have. The other code we had, what about Walt? Volpone, Epicene, an alchemist. Then we had other code was that cat don't bark at devil's news, right? We also had one quote on mask, remember that? What was the quote? black beauty black beauty queen, and we have prince, right? That was our code. So if you remember all this your order of the Ben Jonson's work is easy, and you will know all the works written by Ben Jonson if you know these codes. But anyway, also we also talked about Ben Jonson's question appeared in the past 5 years, 6 years, in fact 6 years. How many questions? Only 8 questions. So that we have discussed. So far, how was the class? Can you write in your comment box that if you liked the class, and if you liked it, show some love by doing thumbs up, right? Not exactly look like thumb, but thumbs up. This is anyway. Also write comment, very important that you should make some comment about this session. So anyway, tomorrow there will be session on we'll have a session on what? Jacobean, not Jacobean, actually Shakespearean prose first, and then we'll move to Jacobean playwright, and that could be the day after tomorrow, or maybe tomorrow. It depends on the length of the matter that we have. Right, so that's gonna be tomorrow. And one more thing I want to mention, why don't you join the course as soon as possible? Because these are join course as soon as possible, guys, ASAP. Very important, because the session we are to cover for YouTube will be till uh, Shakespearean or Elizabethan or Elizabethan. After that, we are not going to post videos. We are only going to post, some parts of the video, not full video. So if you join, what you get, if you join the course, you're getting PYQ with explanation. Very important, right? You know the importance of PYQ, right? And especially the explanations. If you just go and solve all the PYQ without looking at, the explanation, then what? You're not learning anything, because in the option itself we have a lot of content to remember. So that's why we have that explanation. Also, we have explanation session in video, and we have also in audio, we have also in PDF, and we have also in quiz format. So everything almost is there in PYQ explanation that you can choose. And the next thing is, what is in the course? Live videos. So mostly we have live videos that we discuss, like today. And from Elizabethan, there will no more videos, on YouTube for free. But if you will subscribe the course, you will get all the videos, live videos, and also you'll get mock tests. And the PDF that I'm discussing, that you will get the PDF of the notes, and of course your quiz and your PYQ in what? In quiz format. So see, a lot of thing is coming in your way, and what you have to do, just pay once, pay one time, and access lifetime. How does it sound, this particular live session? So anyway, uh, not this particular course, I mean. So join as soon as possible, and I'll take a leave now, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye. Don't forget to like the video and make the comment. And if you haven't subscribed, then subscribe the channel. These tasks you have to do. Right. Anyway, thank you so much, and bye bye. Have a good